Hello, and welcome to Anime Audio Commentary. Today I'll be commenting on Episode 3 of Spy Family Season 2. If you'd like to watch along, then start watching now. I'm sorry to say it, but that opening still isn't really doing it for me. I feel like, it's mostly in the instrumentation, there's not enough brass, and it's not, not optimistic sounding enough, I guess. Kind of a wishy-washy way to put it, but, I think that's the best I can do, honestly. Now, it's nice that we are following up with Yuri, seeing what he's up to this season. He's one of my favorite characters in the sense that he really does seem to get the short end of the stick with this whole business about his sister getting married and all that. But he's a very fun character in how he freaks out. Fortunately and unfortunately, he's in a bit more of a serious situation, what with him being essentially a Stasi agent. And there's sort of this interesting juxtaposition whereby he's hyper competent at his job, while at the same time being, kind of a loser from our perspective that he's so concerned about his sister to this excessive degree. And, I'm wondering if maybe that was an effective introduction, sort of showing off that side of him first, because I think it really adds a sort of gravitas to this whole Stasi business that, it reminds you that this guy is dangerous. Sure, Lloyd has been able to run circles around him so far. That doesn't mean Yuri's incompetent or not dangerous at all, it just means he hasn't been lucky yet. And I guess just to put a pretty fine point on it, the whole thing going on between Westalis and Ostania, it's a Cold War, and it's definitely, if not on the brink of heating up, it's not that far away. And there are definitely people who are interested in heating it up. And that aside, a lot of it is sort of justified, but what Yuri's doing, that's pretty questionable stuff in a lot of cases, I would think. I mean, I guess that isn't to say Lloyd is much better, he does a whole lot of espionage and stuff, but generally speaking, his main mission is one that doesn't really necessitate violence the way Yuri's does. His is all about more subterfuge, I guess. So, Franklin Perkin. Okay, I thought this meant Yuri was going to be scoping out Frankie, and I was going to say, I don't remember that. That would be something alright. An episode where Frankie is sort of pegged as a person of interest by the not Stasi. It would be very unfortunate for him. So, Yuri's being pretty thorough, and that's something that I think is noteworthy, considering that, sure, maybe this guy here, he doesn't expect to be followed or anything, and therefore, he's just going about his business. But, if Lloyd weren't on top of his game as he is, then he might, slip up and get caught. Granted, Yuri's not trying to surveil him as, I guess, as thoroughly as this guy, but, no, I don't know. I think the whole purpose of this segment right here, it just sort of reinforces that there's a whole bunch of danger, and a lot of it is closer than anyone would really care to think about. Okay, so, it's unfortunate that Yuri, as, somewhat superhuman as he is from time to time, he is ultimately mortal, And I'd imagine if you're just watching a guy go about his business all day, that would get pretty tiring after a while. Yeah, I'm wondering if this is, maybe not a farce, but a feint here. I'm not entirely sure that is actually the landlady. Granted, we haven't seen that Yuri's a master of disguise or anything, but I'm sure there's got to be somebody in the SSS who's capable of, taking somebody's place for subterfuge like that. So, this guy is something of a propagandist or a journalist or seditious or something. I'm wondering how precisely they would have noticed he was up to something fishy if they hadn't already sort of gotten a tip on him. Because, just sort of taking pictures like that, I mean, the way he was doing it was kind of shady, but that's not bad in and of itself. I mean, I guess he's just sort of trying to paint Ostania in the worst possible light. Drunken people on the street, a fiery political rally. So I'm wondering, okay. Alright, yeah, so this is, here we go. If you don't have something good to photograph, make something good to photograph, Obviously, these kids aren't digging through the trash to find any food to eat, but, with just a picture, you can certainly frame it that way. I mean, this guy might have a decent motivation here, but at the same time, I don't think you really serve any cause by lying. I don't know. If only from a pragmatic point of view, lying just gives you more things to keep track of, and when you're dealing with politics and Cold Wars and stuff like that, keeping track of the details is rather important. So I get the feeling that this is maybe a bit of a turning point here. No doubt Yuri's keeping tabs on this guy and now his father. And I'd imagine there's leverage there that Yuri can use. So I guess this is the complication. You know, what he's saying isn't strictly wrong. You know, is it so wrong to want to improve your country and this and that? And you know, he is right about that. Although he does use underhanded tactics to do so, you know. I'm not sure how laudable that is. And I guess the worst part here is what he's saying isn't something Yuri would necessarily disagree with, even if it is his job to root out this guy. But I guess, as the good Stasi agent he is, he's latched onto the salient detail. This guy's concerned about his family. That's something we can use for leverage. Notably, he did discard that, perhaps because the idea that one's family is now on the table is something that doesn't sit well with him. I mean, as far as Yuri knows, his sister is just his older sister who took care of him, you know. He doesn't quite understand the truth that she is, by all available information, the best assassin living. You know, so he really has less to worry about than he thinks he does. You know, I guess it's one of those things where it's nice to see him operating on an assumption. It's a nice little thing that reveals character. Although I get the feeling that even if he was aware of his sister and what she got up to, you know, maybe he wouldn't sanction it or tolerate it, really, but, you know, he'd still worry about her, right? You know, you can't just not worry about family. So it seems as though this is how Franklin here performs his seditious activity, you know, he's just playing silly games with the mail here. Unfortunately, this is the proof Yuri needs, you know. It's one of those sort of crimes that you can't really talk your way out of having had it been witnessed. So, you know, I guess that's it for Franklin. The question remains, however, what happens to his father. Because it seems to me that his father, being kind of elderly and presumably frail, judging by how he walks with a cane, you know, I'd imagine he relies on his son to a pretty large degree. Yeah, you know, that's definitely something Yuri's doing on purpose, just sort of standing out in front in plain view. Obviously, they expect him to run and do something, and no doubt they've already prepared for that eventuality. I guess to Franklin's credit, he's decided to sort of surrender himself, knowing that, you know, he doesn't want his father to get caught up in the crossfire. So, you know, that is actually a sort of bizarre courtesy. And I guess it makes sense that Yuri would do this. You know, him being so concerned about family, but it is rather unusual. You know, Yuri says that he wouldn't do anything to upset his family, but I'd have to wonder how Yor would feel about him being an agent of the state as he is. You know, Yor's never really said anything in regards to the authorities and how she feels about him. There was that little segment early on where she was accosted by Lloyd and Frankie disguised as agents. And, you know, she seemed ready to grapple with them, but, you know, she's never really expressed any anti-government sentiments or anything like that. Although that said, you know, if she really knew what Yuri gets up to sometimes, I don't imagine she'd be too happy about it. If only because it's a dangerous line of work. Well, I guess this is interesting. Yuri, he's fairly new on the job. Or maybe not new, but kind of low ranking. Like he's a rookie. I guess it's odd in that there's camaraderie between the Stasi. That older guy, we've seen his name before, I don't remember what he's called. He's willing to buy into Yuri having ambition and trying to take care of the country. So, Yuri says he just wanted to see Yor, but, he doth protest a little bit too much. That whole business with families and all that has, no doubt affected him, as I'm sure Anya has deduced, even if we can't directly read his thoughts. Some things never change with Yuri. Alright, so this is something alright. You know what? I'm digging this. This is like an extended Bondman sequence. Presumably that Anya's watching on TV. I'm bound to say, I don't remember this. But, I don't know exactly how they've animated this, but they've sort of, captured old cell animation. Yeah, I'm kind of at a loss for words. Like, I'm really liking the art style of this. So I guess it's just sort of like the standard stuff you'd see in a TV serial. The hero with a romantic interest trying to talk down a villain and all that. He walks out a trite phrase like, we're all human beings and all that, but, everything just sort of gets resolved in the end. Bondman really is a true hero, just being able to, stop a bomb like that. I'd imagine that, given all the stuff we're seeing, this might be a little bit too much for somebody like Anya to watch. Because, it's one thing if Bondman is, generally just kind of silly and lighthearted, but there's, killing and death and all that implied, if nothing else. And, come to think of it, Bondman's a bit of a ladies' man. Just wherever he goes. You know what? I think I would unironically watch Bondman. This actually seems pretty cool. Now I guess the $1 million question here is, what sort of a lesson is Anya going to glean from this? No doubt, nothing good. So that's the other thing, she's gonna discuss this with Becky, who, generally watches, soap operas and stuff, that's, not exactly compatible, I wouldn't think. Alright, this is new too, putting a bunch of omakes on at the end. You know, I'm wondering if this episode was something of an experiment with different art styles and stuff like that. Because Bondman, there's almost like this sort of like cell animation filter. But this, it's more like sketchy, like colored pencils were used to color it in and stuff like that. But in like a rough kind of way. And I recognize this is just like a short little story, but I'm wondering if maybe the better approach would have been to take something like this and make it into like, I guess for want of a better term, a filler episode, you know, just the family out and about doing things. You know, I don't think anybody could really object to that. Oh no. Oh boy. Yeah, that's see, that's something everybody's kind of aware of at some point, but you don't want to think about that while you're at the pool. And you know, I guess that is one of the downsides of being a mind reader, learning stuff like that. And I guess it is nice that we get to see what Damien and the others are doing. You know, it's been a while since there's been an episode featuring the school. And the whole school dynamic, that's something I really do enjoy. You know, there's a whole lot of interesting stuff that goes on there, even if you just take the social dynamics into account. Well, I guess, you know, that's the difference. Damien can get up early. Anya is singularly unwilling to. I can certainly relate to Anya's position, especially when I was younger. Man, waking up early is something else. Alright, well that's it for this episode. If you've enjoyed it, then by all means, tune in for the next one. See you, Space Cowboy.